Hey, welcome to Nurse Strong. I'm your host, Nikki.
And I'm Alicia.
And today we have a guest, Brandon, with us all the way from Kansas City. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
So, today we're going to talk about the mother son relationship with Brandon. So, tell us a little bit about your relationship with your mom.
Well, my relationship with my mother's a little different. She had me when she was very young, so my grandmother stepped in, and we kind of butted heads up until my teen years. And once I got to be in my, I'd say, early to mid-20s is kind of where we really got closer and kind of really bonded. So my relationship with my mother right now is very strong, but it was a lot of work to get there.
Okay. So, how would you say when you say butted heads? Like, you guys disagreed on anything in particular, or it's just?
I would say everything under the sun. She's very strong-willed. I'm very strong-willed. She took no prisoners raising me. She was about strength. I could not call her if I screwed up, if I made a mistake. I had to figure out my way out of my mistake. I didn't have a curfew. I just knew that at 10 o'clock, the door was locked. I wasn't forced to go to school. I just knew that if I didn't, I would be homeless. So she was very strong, there was no softness there. She raised me to be a man.
Okay. How old was she when she had you? You said pretty young.
She was 22, about to be a nun, actually.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. She was on her way to seminary school when she found out that she was pregnant with me.
Okay.
Wow.
That's a whole different
Right.
twist to it. 'Cause
Right.
that's a totally different direction. So, wow. Okay.
That totally threw me for a loop. So how would you say your relationship with your mom helped you with your other relationships?
That's a good question. I had to temper what my mother taught me with what life had taught me. I went into every relationship expecting a battle because every conversation with my mother was a battle. And I had to learn that love doesn't always need to be a storm. Sometimes it can be calm and relaxing and enjoyable. And
Right.
that kind of took me a while to learn because, like I said, every interaction I had with my mother coming up, it was a battle, and she made sure that I knew that it was a battle.
Right. So was that balanced out by your relationship with your grandmother?
Definitely. If it wasn't for my grandmother, I'd be insane. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I scraped my knee when I was a kid and I cried, my mother was, "Don't cry, men don't cry." My grandmother was "Come here, let me fix that for you."
Right.
So that was really, I was going to ask you about that. You made a comment where you said your mom was, tough. She took no prisoners, and you said she raised me to be a man. So, me and Nikki talk about this all the time in relationships. That's why we wanted to just dive into the different relationships. Do you feel like being a man means no feelings, nothing hurts?
Right.
You take everything. Is that
I know that she feels that way.
okay?
So when I say she raised me to be a man, she raised me to be her vision of what a man is.
Right. But as a man, do you feel like, because I feel like men feel the same way, women feel. We all express things differently, but, I think that's I don't know if it's generational, because we talk about that, generational thing of just feeling like men are supposed to just be rock hard, no feelings, and how that falls into the man-woman relationship. How did it affect your personal relationships with feeling like you had to suck everything up?
It's one of those things where like I said, I had to temper what was taught to me versus what life had taught to me. I'm not a very emotional person to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to figure out whether that was because of how I was raised or how I just am as a person, as an individual.
Right.
My mother taught me not to cry, and I'm not a crier.
Mm-hmm.
But if I see a certain Disney movie, I'm not afraid to drop tears.
Right.
But that was a journey to get to where I'm at. I think men are taught to hold in their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's generational. I think it's getting better. But I don't think we're taught. It's at this point, men are expected to show emotion, but no one is showing us how or what to do with them.
Right.
Right.
So sometimes if a man feels something, there's nothing to do with it. The only emotions we're allowed to express are angry, horny, and hungry.
That's
That's
true.
it.
Yeah,
That's it.
true.
And every other emotion is filtered through anger.
Right.
So if I'm in a relationship with a young lady and I feel that I need some attention, this is a classic example. I need some attention. That's going to come out as anger to some men.
Okay.
And a fight's going to be started. And women do that too.
Yeah.
That gets filtered through anger, and there's a fight going on, and it all could have been solved by someone at the beginning saying, "Pay attention to me."
Yeah.
Right.
But it takes a certain level of emotional maturity and looking within yourself to get to the point to where you can say that.
What I always say, it's self-healing,
Right.
self-love. It's sometimes you just have to figure things out, and then that's when you start, when you start healing yourself and developing yourself, that's when you start realizing, like, wait a minute, I know this is how I was raised or what I was taught, but this doesn't necessarily work for me in my life. This isn't what I really need to do. This isn't what's going to make me happy. And then the journey starts again. Like, I said, sometimes I feel like my life has just started because I've opened my eyes to so many different things and realized, like, these things are not how I want to be. That's not the type of woman I want to be. That's not the type of mom I want to be. That's not the type of wife I want to be. And it took me to this age to realize, like, wait, let me be who I want to be. And now I feel like life is starting over. So that's, it's deep how we are raised.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes,
all of us. Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things I had to erase from how I was raised, because the way that my mother raised me as a version of what she thinks a man should be, she taught me the version of what she thinks a woman should be. And that may not exactly be where I would place what I think a woman should be.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that.
Right.
She's very old school. A woman needs to fix your plate. She needs to be there with your slippers when you get home. You need to give her all your money, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I had to erase a lot of that out. That got erased when I was probably 13 years old.
Okay. But you had grandma as another example.
Yes. My grandmother was, screw you, I'll do it myself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's who she was.
So whenever you were dating, or even now, was your mom's approval of who you were dating, did that play a part or a factor into your relationship?
Absolutely not. My mother, when young ladies would call my house when I was younger, she would make up stories to tell them to get them to never call me again. She told this one young lady that I moved to Alaska and got married, and she started crying, and she didn't call me for 3 weeks until I heard this little voice on the phone saying, "Did you move to Alaska and get married?" That's what my mother would do. So yes, her opinion has never played a part, because I couldn't live like that. Because her approval is, she's one of those people, her approval is never going to come.
Okay.
So there's no point in worrying about it.
Because that's what I was going to ask. Like, well, who did she want you to be with? What type of woman did she want you to be with if she, kind of pushed other people out?
She wouldn't want me to be with anyone. The relationships that she's been around, the relationships that I've been in that she's been around, she got very upset if I treated them the way that she taught me to treat them. So it was one of those things where she would rather me just not be with anyone, or if I was with someone, them not be around her. Which the relationships that I've had that work the best are the ones where the two don't communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. It just makes it easier.
So what I've been kind of learning and just, researching relationships and thinking about my own relationships and family is, a lot of times some parents, especially when they have us young, they gave up something to have us. Like, they gave up something important to them that they felt like, and I know my mom has even said it, like, the way that she would thought having kids means you don't have something. So your mom, like you said, wanted to go to seminary school. She was going to be a nun, and getting pregnant and having you in her mind may have meant giving that up. So do you think sometimes like parents, or maybe in your situation, they're like, you're going to pay for that? Because I've seen that in my personal relationships with my family, like, oh, I had you in high school, I gave up college, I gave up this career, and you are going to pay for that for the rest of your life.
It's interesting you say that. I think with my mother, she had to come at it from a different way, because she did have to give up her dream of being a nun, but that's it. She didn't stop going to the club. She didn't stop hanging out. She didn't stop doing anything that she wanted to do because my grandmother was there.
Yeah.
Right.
So when my mother wanted to be a mother, she could pick me up and say, "This is my son," blah, blah, blah. Right. So cute. When she was done being a mother, toss and go to the club and hang out.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I know for a fact the thing that I had to pay for was being a boy. That was a huge problem. My mother had always wanted a girl. She had planned for a girl. Loved girls. Blah 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 blah. And then there's me. And I'm I have 10 cousins, and I'm the only boy. So I know that I had to pay for that, and it took her a while. Once she really started getting into dealing with her mental aspects and going to therapy and dealing with that, that's when I could see the switch over from her. Now, of course, she's not going to come out and tell me, because clearly that would be healthy. But I could see the change and how she could start saying that she understood what she did and how she was as sorry as she could be.
Okay. So at any point, did you feel resentful towards your mom?
No, there's no point. There was never any point to feel any resentment, because I learned very early that she was crazy. That went from like when I was like 12, 13 years old. Oh, you're nuts. This is a problem. Okay. Let me continue to, maintain my own life. And it's why I left home at 17. Like, I need to get away from you because this is a problem and we're going down a bad path.
Right.
When I left home, I didn't speak to my mother for 3 years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I know you said at some point you guys reconnected and now your relationship is great. So what brought you guys back together?
We were forced in a situation where we had to live together, and then we separated again. And that was the best thing to happen. Because we were forced back together, and that made us deal with those underlying issues that weren't dealt with. And then we got separated again. And once we got separated, it was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Right.
I can see you when I want to and leave when you go crazy. Okay. So that's what really helped. And that happened when I was around, our relationship got on an even keel right around 27, 28 or so. And then it's just getting better and better since then. She's still the only woman on the planet that can drive me crazy. But it's closer to a regular mother and son relationship than it ever has been.
Well, that's good. So I wanted to ask you, do you, I know I've known a guy to, kind of have a rough relationship with his mom, and it really affected his male, female, his personal relationships, because one, he was never able to really accept love. Like, he didn't know, I guess, it was one of those things, if my mom doesn't approve, it's not going to approve of me. My mom doesn't talk to me like this. It was very hard for him. So I felt like, we had a conversation about it. He pushed away a lot of positive relationships and kind of was in a lot of toxic relationships that I guess he was able to control more because that's what he was used to. But he pushed a lot of things away because that's not what he knew. Would you have a opinion on that?
I can definitely say for myself, I've gone through that phase. I've gone through the phase where the relationships that I found myself in were either reflections of my mother just because that's what I was most comfortable with. The chaos of being in a situation and being able to control the outcome of a situation that I saw coming down the road. Mm-hmm. If I saw an argument coming down the road, I know how to deal with it. If she's like my mother, because I know how to deal with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely seen that happen. I think that goes back to self-reflection and really learning, what do I want and what's best for me? Because those two are not always the same thing.
Yeah. Right.
I've been in a lot of relationships where I wanted it. It was terrible for me. Everyone was telling me it was terrible for me, but it's what I wanted, so I went after it. And that I had to self-reflect and say, what do I want?
Yeah. And a lot of times that sounds like such a simple thing to say, like when someone says, what do you want? But when you raise in a certain situation where you're catering to somebody else's needs, especially if somebody else is like a parent, mm-hmm. and you're trying to always do what's best to get their approval, to get their acceptance, to make them happy, to make them not go off, you never ever really explore, what do you want? Like, right. What do you want? What do I want? What's best for me? What type of life do I want, mm-hmm. outside of making everybody else happy or making this one person happy? Mm-hmm. What do I want if that was not a factor? That's a difficult thing a lot of people struggle with.
That's true.
Yeah.
Definitely. One of the things that I'm dealing with right now is not making my happiness go through making someone else happy. That's always been, mm-hmm. something that I've done. Yeah. And it's hard to switch that off because society tells you that's what love is.
Right.
But love, when you get down to it, love is a selfish act. You can't love someone and put all of your chips in them. You have to love someone for how they make you feel.
Right.
So you have to be selfish in love. At least that's how I look at it. I could be wrong. Who knows? Who knows what anyone wants?
Right. But you definitely have to love yourself. I think we talked about that before.
Absolutely.
Like, you love people with the leftover. So if you you fill your cup up with self-love, and then the overflow is for other people. And so if you give them all that you have, then you don't have any left for yourself, and you accepting anything. So I like how you said a lot of things came from self-reflection and, mm-hmm. Self-love, and just, mm-hmm. thinking about, like, what do I want? What's good for me? Like, you know what? This is your problem.
Right.
And not my problem. So, yeah.
Oh, that's very hard. I had a very big superhero complex coming up.
Uh-huh.
Like growing up. I wanted to save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be Superman. And I had to learn very quickly, I'll still be a little Batman. I can help you out. But you might have to deal with that yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So you said that your mom had raised you in the version of the man that she thought that you should be. So, some people say that a woman can't raise a man. What are your thoughts on that?
I grew up in a house with 5 women. I think I'm okay. I think that as long, I hate the hearing that a woman can't raise a man, because all it takes to raise a man is to care about him. There are lessons that only a man can teach another man, but as long as, like, I had uncles in my life. And my grandmother raised me with a lot of self-esteem. So when it came down to me having to shave, the first time I shaved was in high school, my 3rd day of high school, and they stuck a razor in my hand and left me alone. And thankfully, my grandmother raised me with enough self-esteem to say, okay, I got this.
Right.
No one ever told me how to shave. No one ever told me how to tie a tie. I figured all those things out by myself. But I give thanks to the fact that I was raised in a situation to where my grandmother let me know that I could handle that. So I do believe that a woman can raise a man, because I'm living proof. I literally grew up in a house with 5 women until I was 17 years old. And I'm okay. I'm doing all right.
I think people should say a woman shouldn't raise a man, and a woman shouldn't raise a woman. A man and a woman should raise a man and a woman. I think 2 people should. So, but you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
So, yeah. It would have been a lot worse if my mother would have kept my idiot father around just to say that there was a man in the house. That wouldn't have been awesome.
Right. Yeah, is it better to have a toxic situation with two parents, or sometimes it's not necessarily the best. But I'm a firm believer that what our life is supposed to be, that's what it is. So for you to get to your story and your testimony, you had to be raised the way you were raised. And so when people put all these supposed to be's and it should be on things, you can't say that. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's journey and story is different. So
100%. And I know that my mother has it in her head that I think she was a bad mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I had the best mother on the planet for me.
Yeah.
Right.
The person that I was and the person that I am and the person I was meant to be, I couldn't have had another mother but her. Because in addition to all the harshness and the not emotion, she also left me to find my own path.
Mm-hmm.
She left me to be free I wasn't constrained in pretty much any way. I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Right.
So there was a lot of times to where I did something and I said, oh, that's not the good thing to do. And I was free to learn that lesson. So I will always love her for that. She's the best mother in the world for me.
Yeah. And shout out to all the moms, because it's hard out here.
I don't know how there's so many people on the planet.
Oh,
I don't. You guys are amazing.
Thank you. It's hard. It really is hard being a mom.
Yeah.
It's hard. So it takes a lot for me to, especially now being a woman and grown, and I was younger, I might have been a little more judgmental, but now I'm a mother, I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hard. It's so hard living your life trying to make sure you don't mess up somebody else.
Right.
So,
Right. It's like, I hope I'm doing this right. Like,
it's hard giving up things you might naturally want to do so that you can give somebody else the best chance at having a good life. That's a very hard to do every single day, and it's very hard when you're by yourself, when the person that you created this child with is not there.
Right.
So it takes a lot for me to really judge a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I understand, and on behalf of my gender, I apologize. We didn't mean it. I'm sorry. You guys are great, and we appreciate everything you do. I see the struggle.
Yes.
I help out as much as I can, but you guys are great.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts or remarks?
Moms are great.
That's a good one.
Grandmas are awesome.
Yes,
That's my closing remark. Grandmas, big up to grandmas.
Right.
Big mamas.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I'm so glad and happy to have you on our show to share your story. And I just thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Anytime, ladies.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.